Welcome back to another video. So in today's video, you not only have one person, but you have two, a very important guest today. So our guest is a TikToker. She's on TikTok as Tammy. She's also on Instagram as Shea Butter Ventures and also on YouTube as Shea Butter Ventures. So in the hot seat today, we have with us Tammy.
Hi.
Welcome Tammy over to Empower Her, and I told you of all her social media handles, and we're going to drop them on the down here in the at the bottom right here, so you guys can go follow her over there, bring some traffic over there, and remember to like, share, and subscribe to Empower RN. All right, so Tammy is from the Bahamas and also took the process, and she's also a registered nurse and took the process of becoming an international nurse. And we're going to speak on that today. So we welcome Tammy today in the hot seat, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
All right, so before we go into anything, Tammy, before I ask you about international nursing and anything, you're a nurse. So my first question, you're a nurse and you're from the Bahamas. You get paid, you guys, what's the currency in Bahamas again?
BSD.
USD, right?
Yeah, we use the US dollar, BSD, USD.
Okay, so why did you leave from the Bahamas to the US?
I honestly, to be honest, I didn't want to leave when I did. My plan was actually to move to Canada. Canada was taking forever in 5 days. Like it's super hard to go there, and it's hard because they don't have like agency stuff. Because it was in the middle of COVID, like I'll tell anyone, like I love my immediate nurse managers. I even love my further high up in the hierarchy nurse managers. But the Bahamas has like one main like hospital system called Public Hospitals Authority, and they do me a little dirty. So I was like, it's time for me to go. Like it's time for me to go. So I switched my entire plan from moving to Canada. I was like, I just need to get out. So I ended up in the States.
All right. So you mentioned get out, and I want to go back to the currency again. I normally hear my Jamaican nurses and any other Caribbean nurses say that we have to leave because the pay isn't right. The last time I checked, I heard with regard to the Caribbean that Jamaica was the second lowest paid among nurses. So I expected my Bahamian nurses to be well paid.
So when you first start, you start off with $12 an hour. So that's
$12. $12 an hour.
Oh. Yeah. So that's US equivalent, Bahamian dollar equivalent. It's just $12 an hour. Mm-hmm. Every year you get like an increment of 50 cents. Mm-hmm. So by the time I left the Bahamas for nursing, I left at I think like $13 an hour or like $13.50 or something like that. Because I was working for a good little bit.
And then you said you get 50 cents per annum?
Yeah. 50 cents extra per paycheck.
Per paycheck.
So it's like when you start with $12 and then it goes from $12 to $12.50, and then after 1 year, and then $12.50 to $13, and then $13.50, and then so on and so forth.
And that's your starting point, right?
That's the starting salary, $12.
$12, and you guys get paid per hour.
Yeah.
Right. Back home in Jamaica, we get paid monthly. So you don't get paid per hour. So next question. So do you guys get paid per every 2 weeks or at the end of the month?
At the end of the month.
At the end of the month. Mm-hmm. That's $12.
How much is Jamaica when you left?
When I left, let me tell you when I started, our basic pay was at I think $80,000, and before that, many nurses were getting $50,000. So $80,000. I think they got an increase now, which probably doubled or something like that. But we were not the best paid in Jamaica. I think other persons were getting much paid than us, including teachers and police officers. So I think we were in the same boat. So let me ask you a question. What if you decide to go back to school? Would that give you a bump in your salary?
So I already went back to school. Well, when I was back home, I already had my master's. So I had my master's in nursing education. It would have given me if I like submitted my paperwork, because even though you have it, you actually have to submit it to whatever, and then they up your pay. So it would have given me an extra $50 a month with my
Okay, that's good. So not bad. Doesn't sound bad. So in terms of going back to school, is the same process like with my experience back home? You'd have to submit a letter, then wait for approval to get selected to go and study.
So it depends on where you go in. Like
Mm-hmm.
back home, if it's a government, so like I was talking about PHA before. So PHA is basically the government. The Bahamas only has PHA, DPH, and like private hospital clinic or whatever. PHA includes a hospital called Ryan Memorial it's only on 2 islands, 2 hospitals in Nassau, 1 hospital in Freeport. The hospital in Nassau and the 2 hospitals in Nassau, one is psych, one is med surg, and then there's one in Freeport. But what I'm trying to say is if you fall under it depends on which health system you fall
You're
under.
under. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I can only speak for PHA. I don't really know too much about DPH. So for PHA, I was under that med surg psychiatric umbrella. Now for us, it really just depended on if you wanted study leave or if you were willing to take vacation time or if you were willing to take, what's it called? Away without pay. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? The one where you just
No
go up.
pay. I think it's no pay leave or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So for me, I didn't want anybody to know I was going to school. My immediate supervisors knew because, like I said, I never had a problem with them. So I just told my immediate supervisors, and then they were like, well, if they explained it to me, they was like, well, if you want to go to school and you want study leave, you have to apply. Actually, no, I don't think I told my immediate supervisors because from it was a letter that actually went out when I first started nursing. That was like, if you want to go to school, yeah. I didn't tell them, I don't think, because the letter was like, if you want to go to school, you have to tell your supervisors and request it ahead of time, even if they aren't going to give you study leave and even if they aren't going to pay, because they had to fit you in the budget for the $50 that you would apply for. Okay. So I didn't tell anybody because I didn't really want the $50. And I wasn't planning on staying too much after that because everything that happened to me happened during COVID, and I already started to get a sour taste in my mouth about the whole system. It was to the point where I literally would go to PHA and ask to speak to manager upon manager upon manager, and I literally sat in the lobby one day and I cried because nobody would help me. Nobody would help me. They would literally look in my face and be like, "Well, we can't help you," and they just would be like, and I was like, I don't have to deal with this. So after that, I was like, I just won't tell you guys whenever I do anything. So I just went to school, didn't tell anybody. And literally when I graduated, I dropped a Facebook post and Instagram post, and I was like, so I did a thing. And I just posted my graduation pictures. I think coming down to the end, I told my supervisors and they started to tell me you have to tell if you decide to go, you have to let people know because you have to budget for the $50. And in my head, I was like, I want the $50. I don't care. Give me $50. Didn't want baby the money you had for me, don't give me $50. I don't want it. So I just didn't.
I was gonna tell her that, as nurses, when they tell us, we can't help you, you read between the lines. Yeah, that's your time to do what you have to do or go.
I will do what I have to do. Put me first, Lucius.
Yeah, but I'm sorry you had to go through that, but it reminds me somewhat of some experiences, still back home. The next question I wanted to ask you is, how many hours do you work per week? Is it a 40-hour work week or do you do 12s or 8 hours?
I do. You mean here or in the Bahamas?
No, in the Bahamas.
Back home is 8 hours.
8 hours.
So it's 8 to 4, 3 to 11, 10:30 to 8:30.
Okay. Not bad. And you guys wear the same white uniforms also. The last question I'm going to ask you is that do you guys also take the RENR also after you finish nursing school?
The first time I ever heard about the RENR was after I started making videos on TikTok and posting them. And people like would come in my chat from Jamaica and be like, "Hey, I haven't had my R&R yet," and I was like, "What is this? Like, what are you talking about?" But we said a council exam. We said the Bahamas has the Nursing Council of the Bahamas. The Nursing Council of the Bahamas puts on a nursing exam, like I think it's like 2 or 3 times a year. It's a 2-day exam, like pretty much like 8 hours, multiple papers, and you dress in full uniform, which is our nursing student uniform is the blue dress with the Peter Pan collar and the white hat. You sit down. It's a 2 days, and you go in with your hat and you sit your exam, and it takes months to be graded. Like we know our exam is the council. I have never heard of that's multiple. Y'all have multiple choice, right?
Right, but this what you explained a while ago sounds similar to the R&R, but I found it strange that you guys don't know about the R&R.
No, I did not. I mean, I can only speak for me. I did not know what it was until somebody told me about it.
Because it's the council that is it the council that does it on regional examination for nurse registration exam. So it's a Caribbean that sits
now. The thing is, I heard whispers about the Bahamas is nursing like the Lord, was it like the my sister Curry back home would spank me on my hand if I don't know. She would be like, I forget, but it's like our like laws, the nursing guidelines, I'll just say. I'm pretty sure that is not what it's called. But the nursing guidelines for the Bahamas, like our scope of practice. The scope of practice for the Bahamas hasn't been updated since like probably before 1980. So because of that, our council has pretty much remained the same in terms of essay only for the Bahamas, 2 days. Nothing much has changed because it's literally not it's not a lot. So they're trying to change the scope of practice, and in trying to change the scope of practice, I don't know if you can hear my cat. She's crying because I'm not talking to her. Okay. So in trying to change the scope of practice and in trying to change like the guidelines and all this other different stuff, they have brought up the fact that they want us to get standardized with the rest of the Caribbean. And they were saying about like this test that all the other Caribbean nurses take and how it's multiple choice and XYZ. And I was like, I just never knew what it was for until the girl like said it to me that it was the R&R.
R&R. And I find it strange that you guys don't take that same exam because I'm going to ask, you guys are a part of the Commonwealth? I was going to ask if you guys are a part of the Commonwealth because it's a Caribbean and all of that. So
we are. I think it's because like we are part of CARICOM and all of that. I honestly think it's because our guidelines and scope of practice and stuff
are not up to
date. It's just not updated. So they never even thought about the fact to change council because we don't even have a real scope of practice. Like nurse practitioners can't work in the Bahamas. Anything above a midwife, like there's registered nurse, TCN, midwifery. Those are the only like 3 levels that are really
TCN.
TCN is the trained clinical nurse, equivalent to the LPN.
Okay, like a practical nurse.
Then they don't really have like a standard of practice. Like we are so behind. The R&R has not even been like on the radar. Like we're just trying to get to 2023. We like 6 years in the past.
Come to think of it, I think, with what you're saying, I'm just remembering that I think for the Bahamas, you invite international candidates to come in to work, such as nurses. And I think I remember back home, I'm not sure if I'm correct, that somebody said that they had to do like an exam. So probably that's the exam that you guys took so they could work in the Bahamas. Yes. So it wasn't equivalent as if with the R&R, you could just go to any other country and work as a nurse without that exam. So I don't know if you were back home and you came to Jamaica, if you would have to take an exam.
I have no idea. I probably would because I mean, I imagine it's the same thing as the States. Like you still have to take the NCLEX when you come over here. But yeah, is the R&R like? Is that really for like all Caribbean countries?
Yes, it is because I'm Barbados. Everybody, it's for everybody.
Actually, I did not know that.
Yeah, I did not know that either. But thanks for highlighting that. I hope sister is not back home watching your videos.
Listen.
So we heard about what you were experiencing in the Bahamas with regards to nursing, salary, and everything. I know I got an understanding of why you would actually leave the Bahamas. No, you then transition now to the US, working as an international nurse. How was your process in your transition? Did you experience any challenges? What were your experience?
I don't think I experienced challenges. I remember like when I posted how long it took for me to get my green card, like everybody was like, "You lying. It doesn't take that short about a time." But God love me, so I don't know. But like it took me less than a year. Like honestly,
Wow.
from I started my process, I want to say I got extremely fed up in 2000 in like 2021. I want to say I started my process. I sit my NCLEX in like end of July, got my results back by like August 2nd. I applied to my agency the very end of August, early September. And by June 2022, I was in the US. So from September 21 to June 22, and I actually had my like visa from May of 2022. I just took a month before I left. So
Oh.
really it took me probably like 8 months from
So
the
you
start
did
of the
not
process.
so you did not experience any retrogression.
No retrogression. That hit.
So you had a great process. You had a great process. I've heard of nurses back home who like started the entire process and left within a year. But before retro, that was no retrogression. Those are the ones who had it good. So your process was pretty smooth. So in terms of your transition, you had a smooth process. Kudos to that. How what were your deciding factors in choosing where to go? Did you just say, okay, I'm going anywhere, or how did you choose where to go?
So my sister lives in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my states were based, like I don't really have that much family in the US. So my niece, she married military, but at the time she was in North Carolina too. I said she married military because now she's in New York. Like they just be moving all over the place. But my sister lives in Georgia. My niece lived in North Carolina. So, you know, they ask you for your 5 states. So
Right.
all 5 states were literally like along that line. Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. And then randomly I threw out like Texas because I was like, would I really be a Caribbean nurse if I didn't move to Texas? I just threw that in there. But I was really hoping for North Carolina. They offered me Virginia, Norfolk, didn't take that one. They offered me South Carolina, actually an hour away from my sister, so that would have been beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I Googled the area, the first story was something recent about racism in the school. I was like, I can't deal with that. So I was like, I gotta go there. And this is my third off. And I was like, man, I like the area. Like I was Googling all the stuff. I like the area. It have enough to be popular, but not enough to be traffic heavy.
So, quick question. What were you Googling? What were the things you were asking Google?
So I was like crime in the area.
Mm-hmm.
I literally just type in like crime and then I put in like the town and then I type in racism and I put in the town and then I go to news on the Google. Like instead of just letting the first thing pop up, I would go over and I click the news articles and I'll go down with the news articles and I'm like, okay, okay, okay. Because sometimes the regular page don't show you everything, but the news article shows you the most recent. It shows like if it's a heavy hidden crime, like my area, the most that made the news was traffic accidents. Like these people really can't drive over here. But I was like, I could deal with traffic accidents. I'll just drive for me and you. So I just used to Google like crime, racism, just like random, like those were like my two top ones. And then I
Right.
just looked at like apartments in that area and see how much it costs. Because I knew how much I was going to be making, but I didn't know if I was going to be able to afford like the rent in the area that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
So I just was Googling stuff like that and I decided to come here.
So you Googled cost of living too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would like go, you know, like how Walmart, you could change like the store. So I would
Mm-hmm.
change the store with the zip code for this area. And I would just like look at certain stuff like noodles, milk. I'm like, I can afford this. I can afford because I just buy a carton of noodles. I just buy 64 eggs for $6.
Okay, ma'am. I
Yes,
realized
ma'am.
that you did a proper research, so you don't have no problem in doing like a thesis, dissertation, and all of that because you look through everything.
I Google every day, baby, because you ain't drop me in the middle of nowhere with no place to go.
That was me too, but I didn't do the news articles. That's on another level.
I was scared. You live close to anybody over here? Or like you hear like
No, I didn't have much family. I just looked at cost of living. Family was living in other states close by, but not in the states. So I said, okay, I can probably drive there. But my thing was that I had other nurses that I knew from my country that were already here. So I said, if I can find people who know the path already, can direct me how to go about it, no problem. So that was good for me.
I brought my nurse friends with me. Like literally two
Oh,
of them. We moved within like a year. And like we went to the same agency. And our biggest stipulation with the agency was all of us have to be close to each other.
in the
So
same place.
they're like an hour and a half away from me and all of us close. So we could always drive to each other if we decide to go do something. So it's good.
Yeah, so that would be good if you have persons coming with you and your friends. So you basically answered the other question I was going to ask in terms of how long your process was because it moved quickly within the space of a year. You were already transitioned to the US. Didn't have any retrogression or anything. But I wanted to ask, how was it adjusting? Did you adjust well to your area in terms of culture shock, your work environment, working with different persons, getting used to the area? How was your adjustment? I know we all go through a little phase where we're happy, the honeymoon phase, and then you start missing home. So did you experience any of those?
My adjustment, I want to say, was pretty good. My coworkers are honestly like really nice people. I was able to adjust well there. The honeymoon phase did last for a while. Like I didn't go home, I want to say, for probably almost a year. And now like homesickness has hit me every other day. I'm like, I need to go home. Like I used to be looking at tickets, but it's different. Like back home, like all my family lives like very close to each other. I mean, the Bahamas is like Nassau. I'll say Nassau is only like 21 by 7. So we only 7 miles long. 27 miles wide and like 27 miles long total. You go from that to like a place where your town is bigger than your entire island.
Yeah.
And like my sister's like, even though she's close in American sense, she's still like over 3 hours away.
Yeah.
My niece was like over an hour away, like even my friends an hour and a half away. So like when you go from being able to literally drive 10 minutes and seeing your daddy, your uncle, your brothers, your sisters to coming over here and then like the most you see them is like on
Holidays.
like recently, the reason why I even stopped like doing YouTube for a while is because my brother died in October. I was at work. They called me and I was like, my biggest thing is I'm literally in the United States and I cannot do anything. So that's like when I started to like feel like homesick, like I can't go home. Like even if I wanted to, like to catch a plane ticket the very next day, to go to the Bahamas where everybody want to go is like probably like $600. Like that's like when the reality started setting in. Like if stuff happens, like I can't be right there. Like I can't go and drive and sit under the tree and talk to everybody about the good times. So overall, like I love my area. I think I've adjusted pretty well. Like I knew what I was going to when I came into it, but I feel like objectively you could think about things and you could be like, yeah, I'm ready for the move. Like I'm ready to try and process. Like I'm ready to like move forward with my life and start this new chapter. But when stuff like that happens, or like when you start to get homesick, is when the things that you don't even think about, or the things that you think aren't gonna be that hard or aren't gonna be that bad.
Yeah.
That's when you start noticing it, and that's when like the real change happens. As like you don't live anymore, like you don't live home. You in the United States of America.
Yeah. So that's when you really feel like it's hit. And I must say condolences to you and your family with regards to that. I know in adjustments, that's a big hit on not being able to jump around as being back home. And you said that the flight to Bahamas, how many hours does it take to move from where you are to Bahamas?
From Charlotte to Nassau is about 2.5 hours. If I plan far enough in advance, I could get a ticket for like $300 to $350. Last minute flights are 400 to like 600, anywhere between 400 to 600 dollars, depending on where you go. The national air carrier for the Bahamas just started flying from Raleigh to Nassau. Sometimes they're a little more expensive than American Airlines. Usually I end up going on American. But yeah, it's usually like if I plan good much in advance, I could get home for like $300 to $350.
Right. So ticket price is not bad and similar, probably similar to Jamaica. Only when they have those on specials, you see those. But I'm glad we had a good process and in terms of adjusting and especially going through some difficult time, having like good persons to work with and a good environment does help. And I'm happy for that for you. The next thing I was going to ask you is what advice would you give to other nurses who want to start the same process that you did, becoming an international nurse?
My advice is going to be centered around what I see is like the trend now, which is like the work visa to come to the US.
Mm.
The biggest thing I would say is
could you specify which type of visa? Because we know the work visa can apply to both of them. Please specify which one you're talking.
I think what is it? The HB1? H1B or something?
H1B or is it a J1? H1B or one of the
J1 or someone asked me recently about the H1.
Right.
I didn't even know it was two different things. All I knew was work. The only thing I see in my head is work visa versus green card.
Yeah.
My biggest advice is I know you want to leave.
I
wanted to leave too. But just be patient. Don't come over and make a big mistake or feel like you made a big mistake. Don't rush it. Do a lot of research. Don't forget that you're committing yourself for a minimum of 2 years. That's your life. Don't just jump into something because you think it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, because it's not. And like, just remember what I say, like, you're not going to like have all the comforts of home. Just take your time and choose very wisely and weigh your pros and your cons. Don't just go sign in no contract because you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Especially now that you're in retrogression, you could take extra time to make your decision because everybody on a standstill right now. So you just breathe and you remember what it is that's your goal and save before you come.
Yeah. Heavy on that one, save. And I just want to backtrack. Good points. I love those. We were talking about in the work visa. I don't remember which one, but there's so work visa versus the green card. So since we have the pause on the green cards, persons were opting to take the other visa where you come and you work, but you're not guaranteed a pathway to permanent residency. You may have to go back. I saw that trend too. And I say to people, wait. You don't know what can happen. I don't know if people don't understand the stress of leaving your country, going into a new space and trying to maneuver. And imagine trying to take another process that does not give you a proper pathway and put on those pressures. So just learn to wait.
Getting a green card, what you moving for if you don't get security after your contract? The biggest part with the work visa is like it only lasts like what, 3 years or something?
Or 2, I don't know.
2 or 3. And my thing is they could take you for them 2 years, use you for 2 years, and then be like, oh, but your contract's up. Sorry. You tried to get your green card, it just didn't work. We're sorry.
Like, and they need to research too that those cards that other type of visa comes with a lot more restrictions too. So they need to research. I don't think people talk about them, but it has restrictions too with regards to that. A
lot more than permanent. You get so much more perks as a
I don't think they're able to drive with that, I don't know if they get to get a driver's license while doing that. So there's a restriction.
Because like even when I first came over here and I didn't have a green card, my driver's license was only good for like 6 months. And I didn't know until I went to the gas station and I was buying probably an alcoholic beverage. And the man was like, I need to see your ID. And I was like, here you go. And he was like, oh, I want you to know this is expired. And I was like, just came over here, like, how's it expired? But like when you don't have a green card, you lose a lot of perks, like certain stuff like that, like you don't get
Yeah.
It's just not the same. Like, to me, it ain't worth it. But I also know the headspace I was in when I wanted to move
Yeah.
and the frustration I felt like with the system. And I felt like people couldn't help me and people wasn't listening to me. And in the back of my mind, I was like, there's literally no place that could be worse than this at this moment. Like, there's no place that could treat me worse than this. Like, I just need to get out. I need to leave. I don't want to be here. I need to go. Like, I need to start. Like, these people don't care about me. And like, when that stuff starts playing in your mind is when you start to like be like, you know what? It'll be okay. It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Yeah.
But faith without works is dead. You can say God got you, but the thing is, you have to work in a sense that you research and you understand. Like, you can't put yourself out there and then hope that God is going to catch you when he falls. He always does, but he also is a man that teaches lessons.
Yeah.
And don't let that work visa be your lesson that you have to be taught in terms of
True.
things.
Yeah. So my other question to you is, I know sometimes you don't like to compare, but what are some differences you see with working here in the US compared to where you're from, the Bahamas?
Mostly just like paper charting. I feel like the biggest difference is paper charting, rounding. I don't want to say it's a lot more accountability because I feel like you are held accountable a lot in the Bahamas for certain things. But I feel like you have a lot more roles, and with the additional roles, obviously comes a lot more accountability for those roles.
Yeah.
Back home, like I said before, like the scope of practice back home was so limited. Like, we couldn't even put in IVs back home. So, like, even with just adding on this one extra thing, like that's still an extra thing that could cause so many different side effects if you do it wrong, XYZ. So it comes with a lot more accountability. It comes with a lot more of a learning curve. Like, paper charting and electronic charting is so different. Rounding with your physicians and the different specialties early in the morning really ties the teamwork together. I feel like working here, at least my hospital, because I know a lot of people, even from different hospitals in the States, will say they don't feel like it's a team environment. Back
Yeah.
home in my area, very, like, I love the team dynamic where I was back home. And that was one of my biggest, like, failures of moving to the States, was losing the team dynamic that we had back home. But at least I have that here. So I feel like even though that's something that I have, it is something that I think changes, because back home you don't have as much roles on the floor. In the US, they have physical therapists, occupational therapists, respiratory therapists, doctor, nurse practitioner, physician's assistant,
Everything.
nurse. I'm like, geez, what is your role? What is your role? Like, it is so much people over here to
Yeah.
get the team going, to get like it going. And then back home, it's like, it's just me and you, huh? So I feel like that is one of the things. Paper charting, rounding, team dynamics, and accountability, I feel like are like the biggest things.
All right. So similar, probably similar. I need probably didn't so many. I need to stop talking about back home, but it's probably similar because you're still in the Caribbean. So another question that I wanted to ask you is, I know when we come here, sometimes we look back home and we try to see how best, the sector can change based on what we see here because it's like a first world country. I don't know if you have done that because sometimes we do it unconsciously. Like, if we did this stuff back home, our healthcare system could be better, and nurses, will be better. What are some improvements that you see could work back in your home country?
I think physician rounding, honestly,
Mhm.
like, my hospital takes rounding very seriously. Every day at 8 o'clock, the charge nurse leaves the floor and she goes in a safety room with everybody else to see which hospitals like are in black, like how much admissions we could take, how much people we expect to be discharged, any like stuff that happened yesterday that we didn't cover. And I feel like that prepares you, because when she comes back, she'll tell you, he or she will come back and they'll tell you, like, this is what we're dealing with. This, like, we can't send people to the big hospital because they're in the black. We can't accept any more admissions. We don't have CT service. We don't have this service. Like, just throwing it out there, like, physical therapy won't be in until 3. Like, certain information that you have to find out through the grapevine back home is presented to you at the beginning of the shift. So you know how to maneuver and you know how to go around and you know sort of what to expect. So rounding, I feel like even, and then after that, we have 9 o'clock rounds, whereas everybody who I said before, the pharmacist, physician assistant, like all of us are together. We talk about the patients. We go down the list. Every nurse gets to talk to the doctor. Like we get to make changes. We get to know the plan of care for this patient going forward. So I feel like rounding encourages the team dynamic that I feel sometimes, even though in my area back home, we did not lack, I also feel like that's because my area was so small. Okay. It was hard not to be a team in the area I was in. But I know in some of the bigger floors back home, it is like, it really is just too much to manage if you just hearing piece from this person and piece from this person, or a sister coming up and telling you this. And then by the end of the day, you're like, well, if I heard that 2 hours ago, I would have changed the way I did this. I would have changed the way I did that. And then also we use like a lot of telehealth visits. So my hospital is rural, but we have a bigger campus away from us that has like a lot of the specialties like neurology and infectious disease and stuff like that. The Bahamas is composed of 700 islands and keys. I feel like a lot of the times when we hear about the Bahamas, we think one place, but it really is just a bunch of different islands grouped together, like one archipelago. So because we're grouped together, they think, oh, well, this one place is so developed. But half of the time you're thinking about Nassau or Freeport or Abaco. But what about the islands like Maguana? You wouldn't know, but like we have like further islands like Maguana and Inagua and stuff like that, who literally the population is like less than 1,000. Oh. So you don't.
I know Bahamas has multiple islands.
Yeah. So Maguana and Eleuthera and Rumkey, when I say less than 1,000, I would say probably even less than 500. They like the older adults who don't want to live in the city. So they stay on the island, very underdeveloped, way more rural than what I think about when I even think about my area. And they, because of that rule, and I mean, they have papers published, like we know that with rural communities, you have less access to healthcare, problems with transportation, all of these different barriers to healthcare. But in my hospital, we use something called a teledoc. I'm in a rural area, but the big hospital has the neurologist and infectious disease and all that other stuff. But we have like a computer. It's honestly like a robot. Very cool. And you wheel it into the room. And on that computer, it has like an electronic stethoscope. It has like a movable screen. They could listen to the patient's heart. They could see the entire room. The patient could see their face. And this person is miles away at our mothership hospital. They can listen to the patient's heart. They can look at the patient, ask them to do stuff, and they can literally review the chart because everything's electronic. And it's literally what they would do if they were in person, but they can do it over this telemachine. So I was just looking at this and I was like, if we just had one machine on every rural island, like outside island, I feel like healthcare in the Bahamas would just be so much, like just so much more efficient and like inclusive. Because now Rumkey, a flight from Rumkey, like our outer islands that we call them, like I said earlier, like there's only 3 major hospitals under the government system. You have to get from Rumkey to Nassau if you want to see the doctor, unless the doctor's like at the clinic.
You have to take a plane?
Kind of specialty service you have to get from Rumkey. And when I tell you Nassau is like up here and Rumkey is like down here, they have to catch a flight. And because of that, the flight is costly because it's not free. And because it's such a far island, sometimes they only offer 1 flight a week, maybe 2 flights a week. So you can imagine if something bad has happened.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
And you gotta wait 2-3 days to get on a flight because unless it's emergency, you can't call an emergency flight just because your leg hurting. But certain stuff like leg pain or dizziness, like we know that could lead to something even more than what it is.
Yeah.
Waiting days and days and days because you have to wait on the flight. But if you had a teledoc, this is what I call it. My coworkers always funny. But if you had like a teledoc, you would literally have a doctor with you. And I just thought about it and I was like, they use this in the US like it's nothing. And they literally could drive to the next hospital, even though it's a rural area. But in Nassau, in the Bahamas, you literally cannot drive. You have to catch a flight. It's an island. So it's the epitome of secluded and away from. And that is, I think, the biggest thing that I've noticed that I would say, if we had this back home, we would save so many lives and we would catch so many stuff ahead of time. But the Bahamas is still in paper charting, let alone teledoc era. And
that's something you probably could go back and try to bring to them back home or do some other addition to it and do a franchise or something. That's a good idea. But it's alarming though that somebody has to you said that they have to take a flight if they're in need of care. And we can see the differences in healthcare.
They would fall under, remember I said it's like two different like government places?
Yeah.
So it's PHA and DPH. DPH is all of the government clinics. There's a government clinic on pretty much every island. That's where the nurses and sometimes like you have the doctors coming, but you don't get the neurologists. Like I don't know how often the doctors are there. I don't know if they're like settled there, but specialty clinics are like a no. You don't have psych on those islands. You don't have neurology. You don't have ortho. You don't have nothing. You have general medicine. That's it. Nothing. General medicine and the nurse.
Well, Tammy, you can go back. You know, you have a master's.
I wouldn't mind going back. One of the sisters passed a message on to say I need to stop talking bad about the Bahamas because then they're not going to hire me back. I was like, I don't even talk bad about home. I'm like,
you know, you're just giving your ideas and just giving your honest opinion. So my last question I'm going to ask you, I know you came by yourself, right? So there's one question I want to ask you. I didn't remember to tell you about this one is what advice would you give to someone who's leaving their home country by themselves, coming into a new area? What advice would you give them in adjusting and all of that?
Research. Pray. And save. I feel like that covers everything, honestly. You need to research because if you don't pick the right state, you'll be up the creek without paddle. Honestly, if you go to expensive state, it don't even make no sense for you to left home in the first place. Pray because if you over here by yourself, you need somebody to keep you company. And like me, I got my cat and I got God. And what's the last one I say? And save because some of these agencies be telling y'all, like I remember my agency had sent out an email to say I only had to save like $500. Don't do that. Don't come with $500 US. You need to save a lot. Yes, that's how much they told me. It was like come with $500 US.
No, they left off another $5,000. 5,000, not 500. $500 can be your car payments.
The United States is very expensive and they love to charge taxes and you need to save all of the money. If you know you come and start saving. Just start saving.
All right.
You know someone who live close to where you moving and you know, especially in this retrogression, you're not going to be moving for a little while. What I did was, even though I wasn't in the retrogression, every time something went on sale that I saw that I liked, I would send it to my sister. So I would like, by the time I came over here, my sister had my forks, my knives, like certain like random stuff like that, like Bath and Body Works that had a sale. I sent a bunch of candles and stuff to her, like little random stuff that I saw. I was like, okay, well, I could get this. And that way it doesn't feel as bad when you get there because by the time I got here, I already had my bed ordered, like all these other different stuff. And it didn't hurt as bad when I had to go shopping.
Yeah. So that's some good advice. I like those. I want to thank you. I love the discussion. Thank you so much for being over here on our YouTube channel. And I loved how you spoke about your experience that you had. And I'm happy for you in terms of your process, that you had a good process in terms of adjusting, because I've heard some stories. And I think, you know, that's really good. And I also love the ideas that you shared in terms of the health disparity that you realize back home in your country. And I hope you table those down and put them into effect because I can hear the passion about it. And tell sister not to worry when you speak about Bahamas. It's pure love. And if she sees you back, she won't reject you. She
In my
won't.
heart.
Well, guys, we thank you for tuning in, and we'll hope that you tune in again to another video. And if you see anybody that you want me to collaborate with or to interview, you can send me a message on IG or on YouTube. Thank you so much. Remember to like, share, and subscribe.